The truth is, you ask, do we have a country? Yeah, we have everything we've ever had. The problem is that some pretty black-hearted people who call themselves government, who are actually a corporation, have worked to classify us as security for their debt of their corporation.
Hey friends, that was Crrow777. Thanks so much for tuning in. I think you're going to enjoy this conversation very much, whether you find it on iTunes, BitChute, over at sgtreport.tv, sgtreport.com. Thanks so much for being here. Before we begin, just a quick word from this interview sponsor. Get this, a Vice reporter who used TikTok but never created an account sent a GDPR request to the app because he wanted to find out what data they had on him. To his surprise, TikTok stored his IP address, what he searched, which videos he watched, when he watched them, and even his device's digital fingerprints. Plus, that data was shared with third parties like Facebook. Staying anonymous online so corporations can't track you is obviously more important than ever, and the first step to protecting your privacy is to use a VPN. That's why I highly recommend Virtual Shield. Virtual Shield is the only VPN I trust for my family and myself. So go to virtualshield.com or click the link below this interview to get Virtual Shield today for 50% off and free for 30 days. And welcome back, friends. Thank you so very much for tuning in. Sean here from SGT Report. Back by popular demand. For real, seriously. People email me all the time and say, can you please get Crrow back on? The one, the only Crrow, the website Crrow777radio.com. Crrow, how are you, sir?
I'm good, man. Thanks so much for having me back. I hope you and all your listeners are hanging in there and looking forward to better days, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. Your latest, we're going to talk about this at some point during the conversation, guys. They interviewed a living man who meticulously tracked down every document created at the time of his birth. And with that information, he created an indisputable timeline of events and document creation. We'll talk about that in a second, guys. But first, let's keep it topical. Let me ask you, Crrow, have you taken your Fauci ouchie yet? Let me show you this. Some lunatic put this on their car. Hearts coming out of a syringe. People are so brainwashed on this topic, it really defies my ability to understand it. We'll play a soundbite from that criminal, Dr. Fauci, in a second. But where do you stand on your Fauci ouchie, Crrow?
I won't be modifying my body. The Creator gave me a perfect human body, and it doesn't need modification. And by the way, for those who've forgotten, the word Fauci in Italian means jaws of the wolf.
Is that true?
Yeah, it is. We've had a number of people. We have a guy that we have on, and we almost always mask his identity. He's kind of very knowledgeable on the inside, and he's fluent in a few languages, Latin being one of them. He's the one who brought it to my attention. I think it can either be jaws of the wolf or I forget what else he said, but yeah, it's right there. I'm not wrong. I might not be right on the money. I'm pretty sure I am. But there's all that, of course, because they always have to play the name game, right?
Right. Well, let's play this soundbite in a second here, but first, it just astounds me how really criminal these people are and the organizations he cites in this blurb. The CDC. The CDC is now begging people to double mask. The CDC is telling Texans, please don't listen to your governor. Stay locked down if you can, and by all means, continue to wear masks. They want this to go on forever, Crrow.
Like we were saying when we were off the air, when have you ever seen authority give something back they've taken away? Here in the state of Rhode Island where I am, astounding thing came on the television. I don't watch news, but I do take care of older people, so I do see the TV almost daily. And I saw this thing where they were saying people are asking if they get both their shots, how long is it good for? And they had the nuggets to inform everyone that if you've had both shots, you don't have to quarantine for 3 months if you're exposed to their nonsensical magical flu that never goes away. But here's the thing, in the statement, in its totality, it also implied that you will need more shots. on top of the two they're already pushing. And I'll tell you another thing. So, did anyone catch, I don't watch TV, but I knew the South Park thing was going to be a kick in the nads. So I recorded the South Park COVID special last night. It's over the top, man. Just admitting all over in the background images that it's fraud, that the shots are eugenics, just all kinds of things going on in the back there. We've come to damn near an idiocracy, I would say, from the point of view that we have, because we don't control information. In other words, it's hard to know how many people are coming around to their senses and growing the hell up and how many are still buying. And from the way they're trying to make it look like there's limited vaccine supplies, they're trying to create this supposed scarcity idea to get it to fly. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are going to be put balls to the walls. If you want to hold your job, you're going to have to do this. And it's unfortunate because people who followed me, if they know what their rights are and they know how to stand their position and hold it, none of that stuff sticks. We've had RN after RN on, all of them working without a mask, without the jab. It's quite a world we've come to.
It is quite a world we've come to. This awakening that so many of us have gone through is a painful one because you realize, at the very top of the pyramid, at the top of the power structure are really satanic people, really evil people. We can agree on that. These are super evil people that want to control humanity and they want the entire planet for themselves. So let's play this clip. This guy's a real criminal. He's in bed with Bill Gates. Now watch him try to justify, based on science, that even people that get vaccinated still won't be able to travel. This is a total fascist attack, a war on humanity, Crrow.
From the Biden administration that they say it will make its decisions based on science. What's the science behind not saying it's safe for people who have been vaccinated, received 2 doses, to travel?
That's a very good question, John, and the CDC is carefully heading in that direction. When Dr. Walensky made the announcement a day or two ago about the fact that when you have a couple of people, 2 or 3 or more people in a family setting, both of whom are vaccinated, even if it's someone from a friend that doesn't have to be a member of the family, that was the first in a multi-step process that they are going to be rolling out. They're being careful, understandably. They want to get science. They want to get data. And then when you don't have the data and you don't have the actual evidence, then you've got to make a judgment call.
I'll pause it there. Now, everybody listening, that should make your blood boil. Quote, when you don't have the data and you don't have the actual evidence, you've got to make a judgment call? It's just outrageous, Crrow.
I don't even know what to say if there are still huge numbers of people watching something like that and going ahead with it. I don't know. Can those people make it in a world otherwise? If someone steps in and saves everybody, or can those people even carry on? First of all, in what world does a magical flu go beyond a season? Every year for our entire lives, we've seen people get a flu. It happens for a month or two. People have their chicken soup and we all move on. But what they're doing now is rolling out vaccines where they're telling you, it used to take us 10 years. We did this in less than 10 months. This isn't approved. And by the way, if you're not vaccinated and everyone else is, you can't come around them. Well, I got another news break for everyone. In my lifetime, what I was told, and I just interviewed 2 registered nurses to prove that my memory was correct. Used to be, once you supposedly got the flu for the rest of your life, you were immune to that strain of the flu. Used to be, when you got the supposed inoculation, you were immune to that strain for the rest of your life. All that has just been chucked out the window, and none of it stands up to logic. None of it stands up to reason. And I think we're probably going to see a winnowing of people here. But at some point we have to ask, do we need nannies in the room to go take care of people who can no longer think? What's to become of people who, this isn't even hard to see through at this point, is it? Or is it just me?
No, it's clear as day. But the thing is that, and this is really how I look at it at this point, it's a little bit like the election theft that happened November 4th, the drop and roll. I was thinking about this today, actually, as I was considering things we could talk about. And to me, it's a lot like World Trade Center 7 on 9/11. They don't want you to look at it, and they pretend it never happened. Therefore, the official story that we get from the mainstream media about 9/11 is true, because they ignore World Trade Center 7, just like the mainstream media ignored the mountains of evidence of election theft. So we live in this dystopian world now, Crow, where I continue to ask, do we even have a country? If they can rig and steal an election and get away with it, do we have a country at all at this point?
Well, I mean, for people who've been following along through the legal series we've done, no, you've been labeled as whatever it is, an enemy combatant since I think 1933, after they rigged the last big monetary game, the stock market crash in the late 20s. They secured every person with a birth certificate was labeled as, I think the term is enemy combatant. Maybe that's not quite right. It's something like that. And they've used you to secure debt. And whose debt, you might ask? Well, the corporation's debt. Well, who's the corporation? Well, what you folks are calling government and what you think you're voting for is a corporation. That's what you're calling government. Who does a corporation serve? Does anyone out there recall? Who does a corporation serves? The shareholders, not the customer, not, you might make an argument for the board of directors, but basically they serve the shareholders. Those folks in DC are in a corporation. This whole thing appears to me to be a possible setup to fail every state government. After all, they couldn't follow their basic charter. They broke every rule in the book when they started handing out dictates. A governor cannot make a dictate to the people any more than a president can. The governor can make dictates to his staff in the governor's office. That's where the legality ends. And yet they've been doing all these things. I think at some point, if the courts hold up at the federal level, which they probably will because they've taken oaths, these things are going to start falling to the ground. And why would they do such a thing? Because I suspect the end goal here is Taco Bell as your government, literally Taco Bell as your government. There are, well, let me back up a minute. Do you remember at the end of 2019 when 200 and what was it, 50 or 60 major CEOs all fled ship and they swapped them all out? Well, it was a queue up for this. So they've got all their big corporations that own most of everything. You've seen how they've treated people coming into this. If you want to act like your government cares about you, then go ahead and explain to me how the big box places like Home Depot and Walmart, who can pack hundreds of people in their walls, were allowed to stay open, and all the mom and pa's who could just fit a few people inside were shut down because they're eliminating everything. The middle class is pretty much heretofore gone. We have no way to understand what the unemployment rates truly are. I just interviewed Gregory Manarino, and he's saying they're stating these ungodly numbers that we've never seen before every week for unemployment, while they're reporting in the mainstream that the economy is strong. So this is a complete takeover, top to bottom. They're eliminating as many businesses as they can. They're breaking as many people as they can. And what's that free money about? So they've put so many people in the poorhouse that they don't really have a choice. This is how insidious these folks are. And then they give free money. Is everyone ever think that that's just free money with no strings attached? When I got mine, I said I'd rather eat rice and beans to the end of time. I went to my bank. I said, someone called MetaBank put $1,200 in my account without asking. And they said, what are you talking about? So I produced my little piece of paper that said MetaBank, White House, with no frickin' logo and Donald J. Trump's signature. Most bizarre thing I've ever seen in my life. No logo, no official government seal, and a place called MetaBank. 2 weeks later, they get back to me, and it's the IRS who responds and says, yep, you're right. We're sorry. We made a mistake. I kid you not. So a week ago, I get another damn notice that they put $600 in my account. So I got to go do this game all over again because it's a bit like a contract, right? If you don't agree to a contract, yet you're exercising the principles of the contract, that's how things start sticking to the wall for good. What they're going to do, I imagine, is put as many in the poorhouse as they can and try to get over to that universal income where they pay some paltry amount so you can afford toilet paper and corn, and go towards the Brave New World model. But in the interim, it's pretty plain to see corporations are taking over everything, the whole ball of wax. Speaking with Gregory Marino, remember back when the TARP thing happened under Bush and people lost their damn minds? I forget what it was. So many $1 trillion. Gregory Marino was saying that they were giving that away multiple times a day, every day since this started on 3/11, to all the other central banks in the world. That can only mean one thing: hyperinflation. And for people who don't get what that means, it means today I can buy a loaf of bread for $1. Tomorrow it might be $10. It's a top to bottom takeover. Corporations are going to try to move in. Governments are going to start folding up if something doesn't change. And by the way, the promised dollar reset is in the mix here. And that's pretty unnerving too, having spoken with Gregory Mannarino, because he's convinced it's going to get devalued and that the long-term goal is to get rid of paper fiat and go to the worst thing in the entire world, in my view, make-believe crypto fiat. So not only does it have no value, it doesn't even exist. And don't get me started on why that's evil, because we could go hours on that.
It's interesting to hear you so concerned about the economy and the dollar, Crow. I know that's not typically your wheelhouse, but I think you're over the target here. Now, TARP was the Toxic Asset Relief Program for banks. Now, when's the last time you had any relief for your toxic assets or your debt, Crow? So you make a good point. Everything for the banks, nothing for the people. And the model that Bill Gates wants to roll out and that Klaus Schwab talks about endlessly is this World Economic Forum model where you won't own anything. When I say you, I mean we the people will own nothing, but in their words, we'll be happy. Everything you want and use, you will rent. So again, we will be on a plantation. Earth will become a plantation of slaves and very few slave masters. That's the model they want, Crow.
Yeah, something like that. It's some version of Brave New World. I was going to make a mention of, it was another thing that came up. God, what was it?
By the way, when they rolled out TARP, I think the national debt was around 10 trillion. We're now at 30 trillion. And by all accounts, Biden's going to take us to 37 trillion in the first year.
Well, anyone who understands how fiat currency works never will fall for the debt argument. Fiat doesn't work without debt, and it doesn't work without more debt every year. As a matter of fact, there's people who say part of the reason they're blowing up the economy is because the fiat could not possibly, there was no more blood to get out of that turnip. There was no more debt to be wrung out anywhere. And so what they do is they sit at a keyboard, they tap some keys, and currency has been made. And then they loan it at interest. There is no time in the existence of fiat currency when there isn't debt and more debt required. So the argument that somehow the debt would get settled simply means that the fiat currency system would fall apart. It doesn't work that way. It requires debt. It always requires more debt. But I think I'm with you. They're going to go in that direction. I'm not sure they're going to succeed, and I'm not sure they're doing as well as they would have everyone believe. And I think one of the good indicators is all the hoopla around the shot. I think there's going to be a hell of a lot of people that aren't taken. But I do think what they will try to do is exactly what Fauci, what old wolf mouth over there is talking about. Well, you can't get on a plane. You can't go into 7-Eleven. But you see, all these things are illegal. And so people who know their rights and express them properly, those things can't hold up in a court of law. Now, if we get to a point where there are no more courts of law, then I guess everybody knows the only direction you go in to get out from under these types of things, which I hope we never have to face, by the way.
Right. Well, one hope that we have versus, say, a nation state in the EU, the hope we have versus a Spain or an Italy or Germany is 50 states, states' rights. And so one thing that is pushing back against this globalist New World Order system is, say, a state like Texas versus Cuomo's New York or Gretchen Whitmer's Michigan. Now, Texas, with Greg Abbott, has said, we're done. open your business, and no one has to wear a mask. So people welcome that kind of liberty, because without liberty, what do we have? We have...
But you see, this is the problematic thing.
But listen, I'm not asking for permission. I'm just saying that so many people in so many states live under despots.
Right. So you hit it right on the head there. That was my issue. You never had to wait for someone to tell you it was okay. I haven't worn a mask since this thing started. Has there been beefs? Well, ironically, most of the heat that I've taken has not been from authority figures. It's been from other people,
right,
who think they have the right to be my mommy.
That's right.
And I've got all kinds of clever little retorts that I use on them, like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, comrade. I didn't realize you were the prefect here." I got all kinds of little things that I drop on them. But the point is if we all just quit listening, this house of cards tumbles.
Right. I've been saying the exact same thing. These people are paper tigers, right?
Yeah, it's a house of cards.
They're unlawful. They act unlawfully. They're overtly evil. And, people like Dolores Cahill and Dr. Sherry Tenpenny call them out. And people like me and you and others, that actually care and pay attention, we listen to those people. Then we research the vaccine, the experimental biological agent, by the way. That's what Dr. Simone Gold calls it. And we would never in a million years take it. Dolores Cahill, the professor, she said that if she was offered $1 million to take the vaccine, she would not take it. And if it was forced upon her, she would sue the person who gave it to her for attempted murder. So this is a very serious situation, but you mentioned something really funny. It made me think of the movie Idiocracy, this Taco Bell government idea. You're 100% right. We have an illegitimate president and an illegitimate government. They want to pass laws to strip people now of their Second Amendment rights. They want to take all of our rights, and it just begs the question again, do we even have a country? And when you mentioned shareholders in this corporate government, let me just do a screen share here. We'll round out this conversation about the economy, because so many people don't understand that this guy, Jerome Powell, he works for the private central bank owned by shareholders like Morgan, Rockefeller, Rothschild. And here's his comment, guys, about currency and how these monsters manage your money.
Fair to say you simply flooded the system with money?
Yes, we did. That's another way to think about it. We did.
Where does it come from? Do you just print it?
We print it digitally. So we as a central bank, we have the ability to create money digitally, and we do that by buying treasury bills or bonds or other government guaranteed securities, and that actually increases the money supply. We also print actual currency, and we distribute that through the Federal Reserve banks.
But by law, Chairman Powell's Federal Reserve can only lend money that must be paid back.
See, because it's an instrument of debt, and he's misleading. He's misleading there, Crow.
Yeah, he lied.
They don't create money. They do create currency. See, because Federal Reserve notes are currency, it's not money. Money is silver and gold. So that's the dirty little secret here.
Yeah, everything that just came out of his mouth is misleading at minimal and lies at most. And he just admitted that the entirety of what goes on is currency is created and then it's lent, debt. Instant debt, and that doesn't even start to cover what actually happens and how this much money turns into that much money. It goes on and on and on. It's a system that had to come to an end sooner or later. I mean, we could look at it this way too. Everything's about to change, and so we could start to take the point of view that, you know what, I'm special. I'm a living man or I'm a living woman. I have the divine spark. The truth is, you asked, do we have a country? Yeah. We have everything we've ever had. The problem is that some pretty black-hearted people who call themselves government, who are actually a corporation, have worked to classify us as security for their debt of their corporation. This is the whole game of the war against the North and the South, the Civil War. That was all about getting everybody in one big lump barrel and assigning people as responsible for the debt. And there are plenty of people who have made damn near bulletproof arguments that the South had actually said, one of the big things that drove this is no corporation in the North, we're not assuming your debt. That was apparently a big part of what went on. The point I'm making is just because someone has done something to you on paper doesn't make it true. But you see, when we act like it's true, then we start to fulfill the idea of a contract. And this is what all the legal episodes about: understanding who you are, what your standing is, what your status is, and how to deal with that. As a matter of fact, I just saw a clip the other day. Get this. Guys in Hollywood, I think it was, cop pulls him over. And he's sitting there and he says, well, why'd you pull me over? And he goes, because you didn't come to a complete stop. And the guy says, well, when was that? And the guy says, like 5 miles back. And he tells him all this stuff. He's being polite. Cop gets the ticket, comes up to the window and says, sign the ticket. And the guy says, sorry, I don't feel comfortable doing that. And the cop says, this is not a promise of guilt, and goes all these angles to try to get him to sign it. The guy finally says, I'm religious, and James 5:12 has taught me how to not fall into dishonor. Let my yeas be yeas and my nays be nays, and don't make oaths or promises. And that signature would be, in fact, a promise, as you have said, a promise to appear. He goes, I don't feel comfortable with it. So they get another cop there. And to make a long story short, at the end of the day, what happens is they take their ticket, stick it up their own butts, go get back in their squad cars and leave. And this is a perfect example. So the guy was ready to go to jail because they threatened him with that. And I'm sitting there thinking, really? You're going to take him to jail because he won't sign a ticket? Show me where the law has been broken that allows you to jail someone. That would be an infraction at most, and that's just a corporate policy anyhow. My point is that small example of a traffic citation is what we're all facing. If someone comes to jab you with a needle, you can simply say, sorry, man, it's against my religious convictions. The Creator gave me a perfect human body, and I'm not modifying it. And if you stuck to that, and a lot of people stuck, there's really nothing they can do. They can try to tell you you can't get on a plane and do these other things, but you see, if enough people stand up for what's true and correct here, even that kind of thing doesn't work. But the truth is, we let corporations get control of a hell of a lot, and now there's a price to pay for it. Did you ever consider, if 9/11 was fraud, then what part did the airlines play in that? Did you ever consider that?
Oh,
so
yeah.
You can roll that right down the line. And so now when we saw this exodus of top CEOs of major corporations, exodus in 2019, they all got swapped in. You know why? Because they're all playing for the same ump. They're playing to the same rules. They've all made their little plan. And that's problematic because corporations control a lot, like the food supply to some degree, gasoline, a lot of things. And that's all got to get dealt with now. Or we can go get slaved out. One of those two things.
Yeah, the corporations own the mainstream media too. So
Fact.
As we round out this part of the conversation about the vaccine, and then I just want to ask you about that recent interview or show you did. What troubles me so much, and people have heard me say this now several times, is that the media, the mainstream media, has so much power over the normies, right? That the normies are unable to see the truth we've discussed right here on this program tonight, talking about the vaccine, the experimental biological agent. Case in point, my mother-in-law. So terrified of COVID that she wouldn't allow anybody to come to her house for Thanksgiving, which has been a tradition for many years. We didn't get together with her for Christmas, scared to death of COVID. She's 83. She's in very good shape. You wouldn't know she's 83. Ran right out to get the first jab of Pfizer's vaccine as soon as it was available because she's petrified of COVID. We warned her that that was not a great idea. Please research the vaccine. She wouldn't, because she believes mainstream media. She gets all her news from NPR. She believes in Big Pharma. And so she ran out and she got her second dose. True story, Crow. And she says she's happy with it. Now, the only way she could be happy with it, Crow, is if she didn't know what's in it and if it alleviated her fears of COVID, which to some degree it has. So it's a complete psychological happiness. She can't truly be happy with it because she doesn't know what she took. So that's the problem. Have you been up against stuff like that with your family? People that just won't listen to you because you're their kid or their brother or you're too close?
I have an immediate member of my family who was pressured by their job. And the week before I said, are you being pressured? If you are, I can show you how to easily get out from under all that. And they nodded their head, and I found a week later they did it. That's a choice. And since she's carrying the same divine spark and the same free will I am, she can do that. And it's not my place to say different. I gave the offer. Luckily, the older lives I'm responsible for. So I will be holding the reins there. And I have held the reins. But yeah, man, if people simply go look at, what is it, chimpanzee cells, aborted fetal cells from the kidney of an abortion back in the 70s, it's unreal what's in these things. And it's unreal that people can't see what the only real contagion in our world is. The only real contagion is fear. And, you know, your mother-in-law proves that that's correct. And we're surrounded, see, where I live here, there's no more children. When I grew up, when I came here, every house had minimally 3. There was one house with 1 child, but every other one had at least 3. Some of them had 5 or 6. One had 9 children. There were so many children. They're all gone. There's no more children here. It's all older people now. And they're all scared to death because they all sit in front of their black box every night and get lied to. And the extent to which they're lying is, well, we did a show with the great Baldini last night. He took a Google search engine and he wrote into it, mass shooting surge. And anyone can do this right now. Go open up a Google search engine, Google News, go to Google News to do the search and put in mass shooting surge. And you'll see the top 6 or 7 returns all have the same image, and they're all replicated and then imposed as if they were coming from the local news source. Have you been hearing about mass shootings during all the COVID?
No, but I do want to say this. I saw a really disturbing trailer for a movie last night, a new movie about a really violent, horrific school mass shooting. Very realistic stuff. I watched 2/3 of the trailer and then I had to turn it off. Just horrible, horrible. Think of Columbine, but even worse, because instead of 2 shooters in this movie trailer, there's multiple shooters. Very, very disturbing. I don't even know why they would make a movie like that, other than predictive programming.
Well, because they're using fear, the only contagion in this world. None of this works without fear. This whole thing is, look at 9/11. What changed on 9/11? A couple buildings fell down and fear permeated everything. That's what changed. And so that's how this is all being done. There it is. You see the same image. Now, if you track those back down, you'll see they're being attributed to local news places, but it's pretty clear if you know anything about the internet, what's going on there. They're just seeding it. And by the way, if there's all these mass shootings 4 days ago, why isn't it cover to cover, coast to coast news all day long? Because it used to be that's all you'd hear about.
Yeah, this is disturbing. These headlines, they're all identical too. Mass shootings surge in Florida as nation faces record high. What does that even mean, as nation faces record high? Mass shooting surge in Mississippi as nation faces record high. What?
It's just replicated BS.
Yeah.
The media and your government are the same thing at this point. They're a corporation working towards an end. The end you outlined pretty well. And while none of us have a crystal ball, I think we could safely say that if you picked up the book Brave New World and read it cover to cover, you'd be in the ballpark, because that was a blueprint book, as was 1984. For that matter, as was Animal Farm. And now think about this. I just named 3 books that I'll bet you the majority of people listening have read for the simple reason that it was assigned reading in junior high and high school. Well, why wasn't it The Hobbit? Or, any other book? Why are these specific books the ones that we read? I think Lord of the Flies, which is another version in a weird way of what we're talking about. But, Jason and I did shows on these. Those books all come from in and around the circles of royalty, and they're all blueprints. This has been a long, long game. Matter of fact, we just did an episode to show you that the Vatican's at the top of the pyramid and how long that game's been going on. You want to know how long? Since the supposed fall of ancient Rome. You don't even know a real history before the Vatican was in charge. Then we just followed on with the one we just did. That's all about what happens to a newborn baby when they're born. And what blew my mind is this man lives in a part of the world where all the churches are Protestant. They hate Catholicism, and yet they did the exact same thing that the Catholic Church has been engaged in for hundreds of years. holding the paper and the birth certificates on everyone. It's crazy.
Friends, you guys can listen to the first, I believe, hour of that one for free over at Crrow777radio.com. Episode, 301? What brand is your church, and does it matter to a baby? That's very interesting. Yeah, the whole fraud that they've perpetrated on humanity is so staggering that it gets a little hard to even process for those of us that are awake to this whole thing. You know, this issuance of a birth certificate as essentially a collateral against a fraudulent debt by a privately owned central bank. It's just so criminal, and I've been asking the question, Crow, boy, you know what? If you know the government is illegitimate, you know the whole system is illegitimate, the central bank is privately owned, and they issue debt, you know, Powell said we just print it, we just digitally print it. Why on earth would anybody want to pay taxes to this criminal system via a criminal IRS? Nobody would, but the problem is they have the guns and they have the enforcement, so I'm not sure how you get out of that one, Crow.
Well, those are people with families too, working in their enforcement. At some point, you know, this is another thing. Can't you imagine that there are like 5-star generals in our world that are watching what's going on and thinking, man, I've got a great granddaughter, and I really don't want her growing up in this world. All hope is not lost here. When hope is lost is when everyone is hopeless. And I'm not hopeless. You know, I picked up this rock. It's getting heavy, but I'm going to carry it the distance. Come hell or high water, I will carry it the distance. And, you know, the whole story there has been going on since probably at least 1913 or sometime around the Bureau of Census when that was set up, when we stopped writing a newborn baby's name in a family Bible to prove that there was a new birth, because that's the way it used to be done, and that was accepted everywhere, and the Census Bureau came in. And the story that this man tells, because he'd been following our shows, is he said, you know what? I'm going to go get every document, and he damn well did. Took him over a year. And from those documents, he put together an indisputable timeline. And when they cut his cord, his mom was unconscious and his dad was at home. So they did that violence without even permission from anyone. And the reason that matters is because as soon as that cord is cut and the placenta, the caul, the afterbirth, if that is not claimed, that's how the fake identity gets set up. So your name's John the boy. Well, we just named this thing after 30 days because no one claimed it. This afterbirth and placenta and caul, we just named it John in all capital letters. Literally. People are probably listening and rolling their eyes. But this is how it's been done for as long as we can see backwards. And that identity is then traded on the stock market. People can look it up from their birth certificate. But you see, what we're coming to understand is all these people think you have to change your standing or you know how you're classified, and I can see that side of the argument, but the truth is we never lost anything we had. I still have my divine spark. Something was taken from me when I was born. I'm adopted, so all the worse. But the point is you know, now people who've listened to these shows know if they have a baby, don't sign the damn birth certificate, because you're registering, you're giving away authority over your loved one. Don't walk away without the afterbirth, the caul, the placenta. That goes home with you, and you let them know beforehand, that's mine. And you know, we'll be heading into a new world. A lot of people are very aware, and this is, you know, think of the Salem witch trials. You know, it's been said that mostly the people that got harmed there were midwives. Well, why would they want to harm a midwife? You're starting to figure it out, because a midwife knew what the hell to do and how to correctly direct a mother and a new family and get them going in the godly direction that we were all intended to go in. And so you can see what's gone on here. But we haven't truly lost anything per se. The freedoms we've lost is because we chose not to stand up for them. So even those can be reclaimed. But everyone listening still has their divine spark. Now, if you take the shot, I don't know what to say about that. It feels to me a little bit like the devil at the crossroads selling your soul to go learn guitar. There's a modification going on there that's pretty freaking important to the people who want you to take it. Let me just leave it there. I'm not going to fake like I know more. And I do know a lot more, but point is, we've all got brains. You can look at what I've looked at. If you do that, maybe something will be changing in terms of where you truly stand in this world. But if you don't, you've got the same divine spark you were given at the zygote when life was granted you. And when you were born, that first breath, your divine spirit entered your body, which is what they're covering with those corporate veils. We've come so far from nature and godliness that we don't even understand that our breath is our spirit. And so these things had to be put in place for this push to be attempted. And I don't think this is a foregone conclusion. This is a house of cards. You said it yourself.
Yeah, no, I think the spell has been broken in many ways for many, many millions of people. They cast a spell on humanity, and to a large degree that spell has been broken. Now, for me, it was 9/11, so my awakening has been happening for a long time. For others, it might be this COVID lie, right? Those that had their businesses destroyed. People are waking up. So as we finish the conversation, let's just circle back to that family member. You offered to help that family member if she was being forced or coerced into taking the vaccine. Guys, by the way, just a note for those that don't know, it is an experimental biological agent. What does that mean? It's an experimental vaccine. It was approved by the FDA as an experimental vaccine. They skipped the animal trials on this thing to fast track it. So do your own research before you take that Fauci ouchie. I even hate saying that. It's so trite and stupid. It makes my blood boil, but people are evidently willing to put those stickers on their cars. Crow, because I know people will ask, what would that coaching be had that family member said, yes, please help me stay away from this vaccine? What would you have told them to do?
I've had, I think, 4 people in the medical industry. I think they were all RNs, registered nurses, who have done everything from affidavits to, there's an episode where the title has Agent J, or the guest is Agent J. And by the way, anyone can email me and Rose can identify. I don't have a search function because I'm building a new site. We can identify any episode. What she simply did is she listened to all the episodes we'd done on affidavits and other things, which an unrebutted affidavit is gospel in any court of law. So if you submit an affidavit and no one rebuts it, and almost no one ever rebuts anything because they can't, then that becomes the gospel truth in this world from the point of view of anybody. But the point is Agent J, who was an RN, was told, she was given a contract, then she was told right before she was about to report to work, you got to take the shot or you're not going to be employed. And so that was illegal because she has a contract, right? So they were about to do breach of contract, trying to scare her into it. She had been following me, and she simply wrote a document. Wasn't even an affidavit or, notarized or any of the things that we recommend you do so that it's all legal beagle in our weird legal world. But it simply said something to the effect, and she handed out the document so we can hand it out to anyone. It basically said, when I leave work at the end of my shift, I require that all implements of work be taken off me and that I go home with only the perfect body God gave me. In other words, the scrubs, the mask, anything that's required for work comes off my person and I go home. But it is so elegantly written as to have been a 2-hour show. When I read that document, I was like, holy crap. It was like the most perfect thing I'd ever seen in years, and it wasn't even an affidavit. So Agent J, as we called her to protect her identity, along with all the other people who did versions or affidavits, every single one of them doesn't wear a mask, is employed, and didn't get a shot. In other words, I don't know of anyone to date that we have covered, and there's more than just the medical people, who have stood up to state their rights in this world, who wasn't accommodated. And to be fair, a couple times there was some pushback at first until the people came to their senses, which tells you that there is a court out there functioning. Because if there wasn't, they wouldn't give a damn. They'd just say, screw you, we got steel-toed boots on and we're going to kick you in the forehead. They're not doing that. They're realizing the limits of their threats. And the fact is we are a bit of a chicken crap idiocracy right now, and people are afraid to stand up for what's right. But not everybody. There's a growing number of us who care about human beings, actually all life, to be fair, and we're willing to stand for it. And the more people that come to that bridge and cross it, the better off we'll all be. We got to get rid of this political nonsense and this country nonsense and this flag is yours, that's got to go away, because we have to get back to taking care of each other, because we've got some pretty powerful organizations that are going hell-bent right now. So if you can watch someone in the Middle East get plowed over and in the back of your mind think, I'm glad it was them and not me, guess what? It's gonna be you. Until that little thing changes and you realize that's a human being with children and a wife. They bleed like I do. They feel pain. Until you understand the God-given truth of what I just said there, we're going to be in trouble, because we're going to watch other people get mowed down in some way, and we're going to do jack about it. Well, I'm here to tell you that I spend almost every day trying to do something about it. I create show after show. I've doubled down since 3/11. I've searched out people no one's ever even heard of to have on my show so that we could present the documents and the storyline that showed, look, a person stood up for what was right and they won. So there it is. And this needs to become a trend, a habit. It needs to become a big deal. We've got some very powerful organizations that are hell-bent for leather.
Guys, boy, you know what, Crow, that's why we love having you on, and that's why people ask again and again, when are you going to have Crow on? The website, guys, is Crrow777radio.com. And Crow, I'm going to try to do you the favor of not giving out your email, because you'll maybe get hundreds of emails. That episode featuring Agent J, the registered nurse, in the unrebutted affidavit, I will send an email, Crow, as soon as we're off air here, to Rose, and I'll CC you, asking her to maybe find that and send me the link to that particular episode. Guys, if I can make that happen, I'll put that link to the first hour of that conversation below this interview so you can listen for free. But if you want to pay it forward, if you want to help a great guy out, you might want to become a member at Crrow777radio.com and listen to the entire interview. And Crow, we'd love to support you. We have a great audience, loyal people, my subscribed stars. Boy, they really came to my rescue after Patreon.
I heard that. Yeah.
Without warning or cause, after 3 years, because ... a Media Matters for America hit piece on me and others terminated my Patreon account. Now, I'd love to sue these people, but you know how these private companies work, right? They can do whatever they want, and it's completely fascist and tyrannical. Aside from becoming a member at Crrow777radio.com, how can people support you?
Well, that's it. This is what we're doing. And see, years ago, like when you go to my website, the About page there was written in 2013. It's entirely about free speech. I have a degree in internet technology. I knew damn well where this was all going. It was never a mystery to me where we were headed. When I first got into the digital world, I had one view. By the time I graduated, which was the last time I went to school and got my degree, it was pushing the end of the 90s, and then I witnessed what was coming from 9/11 forward. Point is, without that platform, there's no free speech. I can't post anything on YouTube, or if I put it on Twitter, they shadow ban it, and I've proven that. So basically what we did was, for $7 a month, and by the way, every level that you sub is the same. If you sign up for a year or recurring, or it's all just $7 a month. And what we did on 3/11 is we were busting our butts to have the best research, one episode a week. 3/11 hit in 2020, and we doubled down. So now we're producing 2 very damn well researched episodes a week. Plus, we threw in a 3rd live stream on my co-host Jason Secrets of Saturn. So we're doing 3 shows a week. And I'll just say, if you do that, what you're protecting is a server that stands for free speech, which is my private server. That's how we pull any of this off. And by the way, if you're a recurring member, I have a movie called Shoot the Moon that covered everything I learned behind a telescope, and that's given away free to the recurring guests. That's on Vimeo on demand. And by the way, that movie now has 8 laurels. When we first put it out, no one would touch it because I basically say NASA lies right in your face a number of times. But it's got 8 awards now, 8 laurels. The last one came from Jaipur, India. So there is a mind shift going on in this world, because when we first put out that film, people were afraid to touch it. It was too honest an assessment.
Yeah, guys, for those that don't know, Crow also is the person who discovered what is, I guess, now known or coined as, or maybe you coined it, Crow, the lunar wave. My friend Crow, Crrow777radio.com. And one last word to you, Crow. You helped me out and inspired me to get a server beyond the reach of Big Brother. Fortunately, before I lost my YouTube channel on October 15th and my Patreon account a week later, I had already set up sgtreport.tv with its own dedicated server beyond the reach of Big Brother. So a very special thank you to our members over there at sgtreport.tv, guys. Honestly, between you and our subscribe stars, you are the shining patriots of light, really, who are helping keep me in the fight for truth and real news. And that's why they deplatform us, Crow, because they want us to go away. They want us to shut up. They don't want truth out there. They don't want people accessing the truth. They want people like my mother-in-law listening to NPR and other normies watching CNN. That's what they want.
Yeah, the writing's on the wall for all that nonsense. The oldest among us who are about to depart this world are going to take that old paradigm with them, but there's another one in the wings. Right now, they're slaving out all the kids with video games, right? Those children have no problem with the government giving them $1,000 a month where they stay home because they can play video games 8 hours a day. It's crazy, the angles that they've come on, but above all things, if you can't take care of another fellow human being, then you're helping right the problem we're all going to face. It's that simple. It is that damn simple. And when you see people who piss you off because they're wearing a mask, that's a victim. Pull your mind back around. There was probably a time when you were doing the same thing. Those people need help. They don't need a fight. And if they're beyond help, then move along, because there's someone else who probably will accept the help. We've got to pull together, and we've got to have respect for one another. And this red-blue mind virus, this football team mind virus, this country mind virus, that's got to go by the wayside, because you know what? What happens to them is going to happen to us. And that's the truth. And if you came through 2020 and you don't understand that's true, I don't know what to tell you, man. So I guess we're wrapping up. So I'll just say, I'd like to wish you all a happy, healthy, and higher-minded new era, because almost certainly this is a new era.
Amen. All right, Crow, thank you so much. I always enjoy speaking with you, and I know the audience always enjoys listening. So keep in touch, and we'll do this again soon.
Cheers, man. Thanks so much.
Cheers, Crow. Thank you so much. And guys, again, thank you so much to our subscribe stars and our members at sgtreport.tv. Guys, you are very special to us, me and my little team. Thank you very, very much. And guys, for real news, if you want everything for free, you can check us out at sgtreport.com, the antidote to corporate propaganda 24/7. God bless. Bye-bye.